time of Jamal Abdel Nasser, when there was political strife between the two countries, the Saudis actually stopped importing the kiswa from Egypt. And it's part of the disease of nationalism that has entered into the Muslim cultures, and they actually began to produce the kiswa themselves. Now, traditionally, the kiswa was cut up and given out, and it was traditionally given out to the people that went on the hajj. It was just, if you happened to be there. I had a man who was from Italy who became Muslim. He was, now they let dignitaries into the Kaaba in this state religion called Islam, not to be confused with the religion of Ibrahim and the Prophet Muhammad, called Islam. But in that state religion, they actually let these so-called dignitaries, who I don't know what dignity they have. Really, it's not a good title for these people, because a lot of them are actually just thugs. They're the people that have been most brutal in their own societies, and that's how they've gotten into power. I mean, quite literally by killing people and smashing heads in. In fact, in some countries, that's actually the quickest rise to power in whatever the state apparatus is the one who's actually the most vicious, who can kill people without batting an eyelid, so to speak. Like the present ruler of Iraq was noted for his viciousness. So to call them dignitaries really is, I mean, I think we would actually, it would be easier to call a dog a dignitary than a lot of these people. And even to compare them to dogs would be, I think, quite inappropriate, because dogs are just acting their dogginess. They're not being other than a dog, and you can't blame a dog for being a dog, but you can certainly blame a human being for behaving less than an animal. But this Italian man who was making his pilgrimage happened to be a little too close to the Libyan delegation, and they were letting them into the Kaaba, and he got pushed in to the Kaaba with the delegation. They thought he was part of the Libyan delegation, and he didn't have any problem with that. So he actually went into the Kaaba, and actually the Prophet ﷺ did initially want to make the Kaaba open for people to go inside of it. But he changed that, and so traditionally people did not go inside of it. But it is permissible to go into the Kaaba, and if one does, one is not supposed to look up, according to the traditions, to the roof of the Kaaba. And we believe in what's called the Bayt al-Ma'mur, which is the ancient house, which is I don't want to use Platonic terms, but it's actually the ideal house of which the Kaaba, in a sense, is a prototype of on the earth. And that ancient, the Bayt al-Ma'mur, there is a connection between the two houses. And so it's as if there's a floodgate of light coming down upon that house. So it's a very, again, if you're there and if you're at the Multazam, it's a very powerful place to be and something to experience. So the Kaaba was cut into pieces and given out, and now it's done for these so-called dignitaries to put on their walls in their offices or something like that, symbolic of their adherence to the state religion called Islam, not to be confused with Islam. Any other?
I believe the non-Muslims are not supposed to, or they're not permitted to go to Mecca and Medina. Is this in the ancient times, or is this something that happened?
No, both Mecca and Medina are considered a sanctuary, and the Prophet ﷺ the Quran actually says that the people of Shirk were not to come into the vicinity of the house after the year that they were given that period. And so they had the choice. Some of them actually left the Arabian Peninsula, and they had the choice to either leave or become Muslim. And that is because, in a sense, like a bird sanctuary, where you can't actually shoot or hunt birds, because it's a purified place. It's a sanctuary for birds to live. The Mecca and Medina are seen as places for people who are following this primordial deen and in a state of submission to God, as a place in which there is not to be a mixture of other teachings. Now this naturally does not in any way indicate that this is not true of other Muslim places. Christians, Jews, and idol worshippers are allowed to worship in the Muslim lands, according certainly to the teaching of Imam Malik radiallahu anhu and Abu Hanifa, and they are not to be coerced into becoming Muslims, and they're allowed to maintain their churches, synagogues, and temples, places of worship, and to teach their children their religion, and they have a protected status which is called Ahlul Dhimma, the people of protection, and they're to be protected by the Muslims in protecting their right to worship, their understanding of the divine as they see fit, whether it involves idols or not. But the actual place of Mecca and Medina is to be freed of any adulteration, of any change, of any, and this is why during the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, there was the two places were completely purified of any deen other than Islam. And it's only, unfortunately, recently that the state religion of Islam has crept back in and caused the damage that it had. So. Any other question or comments people have? Can you please explain the meaning of the call? Yeah, this is called the adhan, and basically 5 times a day or 6 times if you have the morning prayer, which in some countries they have 2, an early morning, and which is before dawn, and then a dawn time. The call to the prayer is made, the 5 prayers, and it's interesting that traditions have ways of calling their people to prayer. The traditional Christian way is by the bell. The traditional Jewish way was by a ram's horn. Some of the Buddhists use trumpets, and other Buddhists use the triangular. I'm not sure what it's called. I can't remember. What's that called? There's a little triangle of metal that you hit, and they'll use that. And but it is Islam that uses the human voice to call, because we are a logocentric tradition. Our teaching is based on the word. It's based on communication, which is linguistic, and so our call to worship is through language. In the same way that traditionally there is no symbol of Islam. Like Christianity takes the symbol of the cross, and Judaism takes the symbol of the 2 triangles, one inverted upon the other, and Buddhism takes the symbol of the wheel of Dharma, the religious tradition. Now sometimes the Seljuk hilal or crescent moon is used as a symbol for Islam. This is actually an innovation. It is not from the Islamic tradition, but it's nonetheless interesting to note that the Seljuks did take a natural symbol, a symbol from the natural world, to symbolize the nature of the natural teaching of Islam, that it is not supposed to be an artificially created teaching, therefore it should not have an artificially created symbol to represent it, but rather a natural symbol. So that it is the human voice through which God calls human beings. And this is why the Quran is in the language of human beings, which is Arabic, and that is how people are called. So literally saying first that Allah is greater than anything that can be conceived. Allahu Akbar. Allah is greater than any conception. Allah is greater than anything. Laysa kamithlihi shay. And then that there is no God but Allah. That Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, peace be upon him, is His messenger, which in that articulation is the acceptance of all the previous messengers as well. According to Imam al-Tirmidhi, the hadith says that there were 124,000 prophets to human beings, that every people had a prophet, and it is our belief that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is unique in that he is a prophet to all peoples, as opposed to previous prophets who were limited, given the nature of the provincial nature of the world prior to the time of the Prophet Muhammad, when communities were very isolated, and then that Hayya ala salat, which is come to prayer, Hayya ala al-falah, which is come to success, and then again Allahu Akbar, and then La ilaha illallah, there's no God but Allah. So that's basically